CNN, U.S. military. U.S. to withdraw nearly 12,000 troops from Germany, a move that will cost billions and take years. The U.S. is moving forward with President Donald Trump's plan to withdraw nearly 12,000 troops from Germany, a decision that has attracted bipartisan congressional opposition and royal key allies who see the move as a blow to NATO. Welcome, everybody. This is AllMinucOne. My name is Bill. Please, if you enjoy this kind of content, like, share, and subscribe. Now, today's topic will be this military withdrawal in Germany. I'm not liking to cover a lot of news, more history and philosophy, but this is very important about what is actually going on in the world and what propaganda is being fed to you. Let's see here. Also from CNN, Trump's decision to move troops from Germany slammed as a gift to Putin. Oh my. Trump and Putin, he's in bed with Putin. This is ridiculous, people. Absolutely absurd. You can look these articles up. I'm not going to go through them. I'm going to talk about what our real threats are and essentially what Russia is. And the main reason why this is a big deal is because NATO is a globalist organization arrived at initially because of the Russian threat, because the threat of global communism, the threat that no longer truly exists from Russia, because the communists in power are really those in China. So we will get there. This is from the BBC. U.S. to withdraw 12,000 troops from Germany in strategic move. Now, the BBC is a little bit less biased than CNN, although they are left-leaning. The U.S. is set to withdraw almost 12,000 troops from Germany in what is described as a strategic repositioning of its forces in Europe. About 6,400 troops will be sent home, and the rest move to NATO countries such as Italy and Belgium. President Donald Trump said the move was a response to Germany's failing to meet NATO's targets on defense spending. Now, this has been one of Trump's big things, and the reason why is because we spend too much money globally. We spend too much money in international aid. We spend too much money with providing military defense to these other countries from this old artifact of the Cold War. And if we are going to continue to do this, our economy will continue to get more and more unstable. We've already added something like another $8 trillion of debt in just this presidency alone. This is not an ending cycle. And there are many people within the government who want this to continue. And the reason why they want it to continue is because they want a global government. They want the globalism. I'm all for global trade. I'm all for global communications, but I like national sovereignty. One of the reasons why the Brexit movement happened in England is because the people of England felt like they had lost their sovereignty after the the EU continually placed restrictions on their ability to trade and tax them and did the other things that it said it was not going to do. So let's take a look at a map of Europe real quick. And the reason why I want to go over a map of Europe is because here is Moscow. This is probably the largest city in Western Russia. And over here is Berlin. This is Germany. These are all NATO countries. These are all the countries in between Moscow. Here's the Ukraine. They quite adamantly hate Russia. A lot of these countries do. Some of these countries actually have, such as Georgia, very open free markets getting away from their former Soviet-style rule. And I'm only pointing this out because if there was, for some reason, 12,000 troops disappearing, being gone, was going to lead to Russia having a stronger presence over here in Germany, they're going to have to deal with these nations as well. So here is a quick wiki. It says the United States has 41 military installations in Germany. two of which are scheduled to close, and over 200 others were closed, mostly following the end of the Cold War in the early 1990s. So we've already demilitarized that area to some degree. Now, this map here I'm going to make bigger. If you notice, this is Germany. All of the bases are on the western side of Germany. Now, if you weren't aware, there was a reason for that, and that is this. You may have heard of it. It was called East Germany. Here is Berlin. That is West Berlin. Hopefully you all can see my cursor. Those bases are scattered around these areas. This was communist territory 30 years ago, not today. 30 years have passed, people. 30 years. The world order is not the same. There are different power players now. Since the 1970s, the Chinese have become the second largest power in the world to the United States. It is not Russia. Russia is not a threat. And perhaps you think that Russian bots and agents and stuff can swing our elections and do all kinds of stuff that you are being told to throw the scent off of what is really going on. This here says military background. At the time of German reunification in 1990, there were still about 200,000 U.S. soldiers in Germany. By 2014, the number had been steadily reduced to 42,450 stationed in 38 facilities. Now, if Trump is removing 12,000 troops, that still leaves 30,000 in Germany. Are those 30,000 troops keeping all of Russia from invading Europe? I don't think so. And I don't think that loss of 12,000 has anything to do with anything other than economic reasons. And NATO and the nations of Europe, as Trump has pointed out before, have not paid their bills well. And they can have, and they do have, their own military forces. I'm going to turn this off dark mode. Just for some perspective here, folks. This is a map of Europe and a trip from Berlin to Moscow. It's a very, very long trip. It says it's about 999 miles. That's as the crow flies. It's a little bit over 1,100 by land. It will take 1 day, 1 hour, and 23 minutes. For a comparison to those of us who live in the United States, this is the distance from New York to Beaumont, Texas. Now, it's a little bit longer, another 400 miles or so, but the timing's a little bit different, probably because we have better highway systems. And as you can see down here, that there are 1,345.43 miles from New York to Beaumont, and a southern direction, and gets into it. I, again, wanted to bring this up just to give you some perspective of how far away these things are, and understand that Russia is a huge, huge nation, and these other nations in Europe are very close together, much like the original colonies were in the Northeast. Now, this is Russia's GDP. Russia has a GDP of $1.658 trillion. This is in 1990. We can see here on this list that we have Germany, Italy, and Russia. Germany in 1990 had 3 times the GDP. As we go over the years, Russia got away from communism and their GDP grew. And here today we can see that Germany has 3.948 trillion, Italy 2 trillion, and by the way, some of those troops would be relocated to Italy, and Russia 1.685, which is what is up there, right? So let's look at the Russian economy for a minute. It says an upper middle class mixed and transitionary economy. It is the 5th largest national economy in Europe and number 11 in the world. So If we go down here, we can look at the population. So they have 146 million. We can see their GDP. We can see where they're ranked. We can see their growth rate. We can see their GDP per capita, which is not much. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Here we can see what their GDP is by sector. Very small agriculture, some industry, right? But mostly services. This is actually very comparable to the United States. We have poverty line, but what I really want to get into here is the Gini coefficient. Now, this is kind of marked off weird here because usually it's on a scale of 0.1, 1 being 100%, but I believe this is supposed to be within 100%. So I believe this is supposed to be 0.375. It says medium. It's actually low. It's not super low, but what the Gini coefficient is, it basically shows income distribution. Now, if we see here at the beginning of the Russian Federation, we go down here, this changed drastically. It was up much higher at 461, and that, let's go to a bar. Well, that didn't work out. But that essentially tells us that the income distribution was not very even for a while. One being or 100% being that the majority of the wealth is concentrated into a very few small hands. So as we go over the years, we see that it's risen and it's fallen. And right now, Russia's in a pretty good place. The people there are middle class. They live pretty decent lives, even though they have a much smaller amount of wealth than the rest of the Western world. So here specifically, this is from Wiki. The Gini coefficient was proposed by Gini as a measure of inequality in income or wealth. So let's get down to here. Various estimates to be 0.63 to 0.07, and that is those that have the highest in the world. The lowest is in Slovenia, which is 0.24 to 0.4 and 0.49. And so again, the lower the number is, the more evenly distributed the income is, meaning the larger your middle class is essentially. And Russia is in the 3 area. Although this figure dropped to 0.52 after social assistance is taken into account and drops again after taxation, the global income Gini coefficient in 2005 has been estimated to be between 0.61 and 0.68 by various sources. So this is the global Gini coefficient, meaning that the income distributed across the world. Now, cool fact, I didn't bring this up here, it just came to the top of my head. But if you make over $33,000 a year in the United States, you are in the top 1% of all income earners. And that is adjusted across all monetary systems. So we have a very, very high standard of living, even those of us who are, poor. And if you've never been to an actual poor country, you wouldn't believe the measure of luxury that we live in. So let's look at the economy of Texas. Its GDP is $1.803 trillion, the second largest in the U.S. As of 2015, Texas is a home of 6 of the top 50 companies on the Fortune 500. That's pretty cool, I think. Let's look at New York, since we were making a trip from Texas to New York. And they have a GDP of 1.751 trillion, meaning that those who live in New York or in Texas, generally as a state as a whole, they actually have a higher GDP, meaning they make and earn more money, produce more things than the entire gigantic country of Russia, a country with 146 million people in it. Let's get back here to the economy of Texas. We're going to scroll down here. This per capita income, that's kind of important. Poverty line, those things are important. Gini coefficient, notice it's actually higher than Russia. This makes sense though, because Texas is a very large state. It's vast, it's huge, and it has many areas that are nearly uninhabitable. They're desertous, and There are different portions of Texas, but it is gigantic. And with that, you're going to have sectors of more industry, more business, and a lot of sectors that are more rural and poor. So who has the bigger economy? This is Russia or Texas. Texas has long been known as an economic powerhouse among the states, but High Plains residents may not be aware of just how powerful the Lone Star State is on the world stage. According to a new editorial in Forbes, the economy of Texas dwarfs that of Russia, which is by far the largest country in the world by area. While the population of Russia is almost 5 times that of Texas, Texas outpaces Russia when it comes to GDP. Russia's gross domestic product amounts to about 1.3 trillion, while the Lone Star State comes out to about 1.7 trillion. Meaning that Texas crushes Russia when it comes to per capita GDP. The per person GDP for a Russian is around $9,000. That is US. It's adjusted for US dollars. While in Texas, it's almost $59,000 per person. What's more, while the Russian economy almost exclusively revolves around crude oil production, Texas has been diversifying its economy for decades. The second largest state now leads the nation in wind energy and is a leading hub for advanced technologies in manufacturing, aeronautics, biotechnology, and life sciences. So this article gets into some other things you can look at, but they're basically related content. And of course, you can link to the Forbes article if you'd like. And this was from High Plains Public Radio. But just look up the title here if you want to read for yourself. Now, China. Their GDP is 13.6 trillion. If we go back to the 1960s, their GDP was 59 billion. All of a sudden, in the 1970s, when Nixon opened up trading with China and helped industrialize them, the United States was at the point where Russia was at the time, 1.1 trillion. China, 99 billion. And that grows very, very quickly. And then you can see, as we track along, the United States going up, China going up. China all of a sudden starts getting into the mid billions, and then by the early 90s, they are about at $1 trillion in the 2000s, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. In fact, if you look at the curve here, Japan has actually flatlined. Not completely, but it's flatlined. But the United States and China have risen on a slope almost exactly the same. The difference is that the U.S. has a lead. Now, we're not going to get into all of the things for the Chinese market system, but you can read for yourself on Wiki. It is very fast growing, mostly because it does all the world's manufacturings. If we go back to that other article very quickly, Japan was going up because they were doing the manufacturing. But if you look at the slope here, if you look at the slope on the bottom, it wasn't until Japan started doing less manufacturing and China really took it over that China started that upward rise. So, what I wanted to get into here is the per capita. It's a little bit better than Russia. And the Gini Coefficient, though, is high, much higher. So you have a society that essentially would have a lot of income inequality, and the higher it gets, the more unstable the society gets. But you have the leaders, because of the way the Chinese rule, you have the leaders dictating everything and planning things out for years and years and years, to the point where they're buying up land and resources in Africa, where they buy land over here in the United States. They set up their own banks. They do all kinds of things. And the idea is they become more and more powerful so they can then subvert the governments. Now, here's an example of this. This is from National Pulse. The Chinese Communist State media chief threatens to host Antifa BLM leaders. So this was from June 9th, 2020. And I had read this when it came out. But essentially, they're supporting the rioters because they know that the rioters are far leftists. Black leaders like Du Bois and Huey Newton visited China in the late 1950s and 60s. Imagine Washington's reaction if China invites BLM or Antifa leaders to Beijing. Today, or Chinese officials meet with them in D.C. during the ongoing protests like U.S. officials did, as this photo reveals. So it gets into, obviously, George Floyd. It gets into Trump's response here to Antifa as a terrorist organization. And then here we have this Chinese national again talking about, and this very embarrassing, Julie Eden, a U.S. diplomat in Hong Kong, was caught meeting Hong Kong protest leaders. It would be hard to imagine the U.S. reaction if Chinese diplomats were meeting leaders of Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter, or Never Trump protesters. Now, why are they putting out tweeting this propaganda? Well, obviously, China wants Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a huge economic center, and they want that. They want that economic center. They want that power. They want that part of that nation. They consider it theirs. The people in Hong Kong, they want to remain free. The Chinese government does not care if they remain free. That's why if you look at Hong Kong protests, you'll see people waving American flags and singing our national anthem because they know about freedom and the threat to take it away. Whereas here, we are just far too comfortable and we listen to far too much propaganda and we do not think. We emote based on propaganda. We don't delve in. We don't dig deeper. And that is all I am trying to do and ask that you all do is think, don't react, think. And with that, speak out. Speak out and talk to people. And I know there will be many people who don't listen to you, but you need to speak out. And because there are a lot of people who are willing to listen, and you will never know who they are until you speak with them. So here again, from the National Pulse. Breaking, Twitter admits China used nearly 200,000 fake accounts to influence politics, 150 times more than Russia. This was on June 11th, 2020. Now, this is important because everything's always about Russia. And before you think I'm a trumpeter or something like that, I'm not. I just like that we're not entering these global contracts. I like having national sovereignty. I like having my freedom because I can promise you when outsiders dictate your freedom who have nothing in common with you and no geography or anything else, and they already are, by the way, the UN has many, many regulations that we listen to, from like how we build our homes to buildings. And I know that there's a climate change issue there that they're trying to address, but there is no guarantee that they'll do so. I talked to a contractor once, actually, and he was telling me about all the things that he had to do in order to basically cut down energy and greenhouse emissions. And then everything that he did to be a countermeasure created more of a problem. So then he had to do a countermeasure for that. So then he had to do a countermeasure for this. And I said something. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like you're chasing your tail. And he goes, you're telling me. And I said, well, don't you think that's a little bit like ridiculous? Like, don't you think it would just be easier to come up with other solutions? And he's like, we're trying to save the world. But that's that brainwashing I'm talking about. You're not saving the world by creating more problems. You're not saving the world by creating more costs. That's not what's happening at all. In fact, I can tell you, any industrialized society, any society that creates a lot of wealth for its people, when that Gini Coefficient goes down and the money is spread out amongst the people very evenly, what happens is that people have time all of a sudden. They have leisure to be more environmentally aware. And in third world countries, they don't care. They're just trying to survive. They just want to get their next meal. They just want fire to stay warm. They don't care about how they pollute because they are in survival mode. We can talk about the whole idea if the world is warming. I think it is. Do I think it's going to destroy everything? No. The Earth goes through cycles. Are we influencing it? Maybe. I think the sun's probably a lot bigger of an influencer. But that is me. I don't listen to propaganda. I just read facts. And I've listened to a lot of people who are experts in the field, and I don't believe all the propaganda. So let's see here. The Communist Party has weaponized nearly 200,000 Twitter accounts to disseminate state-linked propaganda, while Russia and the left's boogeyman for pro-Trump election interference had under 1,200 accounts. 1,200 accounts. Who is the real influencer? Who has the real power here? Now, again, I'm not going to go through this National Pulse article, but I will do this. I will go to this official statement from Twitter, disclosing networks of state-linked information, operations we've removed. Today, we are disclosing 32,242 accounts on our archive of state-linked information operations, the only one of its kind in the industry. The account sets were published to the archive today, including 3 district operations that we have attributed to the People's Republic of China, Russia, and Turkey, respectively. So when we get down here, though, they start talking about numbers, the People's Republic of China. So 23,750 accounts that comprise the core of the network, highly engaged core network, approximately 150,000 accounts that were designed to boost this content. So what that is, you make like fake accounts. So if I wanted to grow my YouTube channel, I develop, hundreds and hundreds of YouTube accounts on my own. And then I like my content, I put comments on it, and then the algorithm picks it up, and then it shares it more, and then more people see it, and then my channel grows. Now, I'm not a shady person. I'm an honest person. And so I want that not to be the case. I want people to enjoy what I'm making. And if I'm not good at it, then I want to be able to get better. And the market will provide as far as I'm concerned. But more importantly, I just want people to hear the message. But I'm not going to do it deceptively. China will. And they will share things that divide the United States. Now, if we compare that to Russia, there's almost no information there. At the very bottom here, we can see that there were just over 1,000 accounts associated. And then Turkey, well, they have a little bit more influence there. But the real point is that we start talking about these left-wing conspiracies, right? Because that's what they are. They're in their propaganda and their lies to confuse you, make you hate the president, because most of our government are globalist. And I mean the people in power, the people that have power. We saw this with Russiagate. We saw this with Ukrainegate. We saw this just the other day with Bill Barr and his hearing, in which the Democrats wouldn't let him speak and just accused him of horrible things. We have a government that isn't functioning, or at least a federal government that isn't functioning, because it's more worried about their political goals and their own power than the people and their freedom. You know, I had someone comment on my video I made on the Black Lives Matter and the communist underlines behind that. And they said, well, if you don't want communism, you have to realize there's... You have to start admitting there's systemic racism. And then they mentioned PragerU and Candace Owens. And I thought, well, okay, well, Candace Owens doesn't believe in it. She's a black lady. But yeah, those are just 2 names. And then they're like, we need more things within the system. And my whole thought is why do you want the system to fix the system? Like, if you keep going to your doctor and he's not treating you for the right thing, or with the right medications, and it's making you worse, then why do you want to keep seeing that same doctor or visit him more often? It's just a little bit of logic. And I'm not trying to give that person a hard time. They have their beliefs. I don't understand it. And as far as racism goes, there might be some systemic things. I mean, I think a lot of that's on a more local governance level, from what I understand. But most of the racism I see comes from the left. And I also mentioned to them that the left, being the alt-right, considered the supposed alt-right, are closer to the left than what anyone who's liberty-minded is. The alt-right wants socialism. They want bigger government. They just want it for just white people, or they want segregation. But I'm seeing the same things out of the left. They want segregations, and they want certain special rights based on race, and they want socialism or communism. So I really don't get why you're going to make an argument saying that, well, if you don't want communism, you need more system. And it's like, no. No, if I don't want communism, I need less system. And if we have less system, there will be less of that systemic racism that you are claiming exists. It doesn't work the other way around. You don't make things bigger and stronger and more powerful and expect them to protect you. That's not what happens. It's quite the reverse. In fact, when you make them bigger and stronger, you provide tyranny. So this is Chinese interference. This is from NBC, Boston 10. Harvard professor indicted in China case. Charles Lieber, 61, will be arraigned in federal court in Boston on 2 counts of making false statements to investigators regarding his involvement in China's Thousand Talent program. Now, what he was doing is he was essentially spying for China and feeding them information, and they steal our information all the time. He was given a lot of money. Mucho bucks, guys. Mucho bucks. Let's see. I'll go back to dark mode here. Under Lieber's program contract, prosecutors say he was paid $50,000 a month and a living expense up to $158,000. He was also awarded more than $1.5 million to establish a research lab and the Chinese university, prosecutors said. Now, this guy claims he's innocent and whatever else. I don't really care. My point is this happens a lot. This actually happens all of the time. There were cases, maybe I'll do a video on this later on, where there were Chinese nationals who we have found is late, maybe more recently, I haven't seen, but Yahoo News broke this as late as November. They were bringing in deadly infectious diseases through the airport and not claiming them. And they would just happen to get caught a few times. So, and then they would be, oh, I didn't know I had this. And this has been going on for years. They're transporting things, not necessarily bioweapons, but biohazardous material, and not going through the proper procedures. What's up with the secretiveness? Why are they doing that? You're going to tell me that researchers don't know how to properly check things? So here is the share of the global economy. This is the majority of the world. This is the United States at 23%. Over here is the UK at 3%. Germany, 4.6%. Japan. This is China at 15%. This is important, guys, because if Russia is the big boogeyman, then they should have some economic power. They're not even on this list. You could say, yeah, they have economic power more than a lot of other nations, but, let's be real. It's a gigantic country. The landscape is insane. There's mountains, there's woods, there's Siberian tundra, there's desert, there's all kinds of craziness in Russia. It is huge, and for its size, it has a relatively small population. Let's see, the U.S. is the number 1 GDP earner. So we'll go down the line here. Number 2, China. Number 3, Japan. 4, Germany. 5, India. India, of all places. Why? Well, they have 1 billion people, much like China, and they've been moving away from communism and developing free markets there. They still have a lot of people impoverished, though. 6, the United Kingdom. 7 is France. So you think that our moving 12,000 troops out is a gift to Putin? We're not even moving all the troops. We're actually moving 6,500 out or so, 6,400. And the rest of them are just being relocated to other bases. So you don't think that France and Germany and Italy, if Russia was invading, wouldn't help each other out, considering they're part of the European Union? It's not America's responsibility, people. We can provide aid and help, but it's not our responsibility to be protecting these countries from potentially a weaker country. So we still have Italy. Number 9 is Brazil. You know, Brazil's a pretty large country unto itself. Also, I believe has something like the 5th largest population in the world. So it's China, India, us, the U.S., I believe, then Russia, and then Brazil, or I might have those two reversed. But either way, so this is where the money's being made, right? Then it's Canada. Canada's above Russia. Okay, and then South Korea. Spain, though. Spain's still in there, number 13. Australia, Mexico even. So you can see it. Who has the power? Who has the people? Who has the military might? Who would be willing to do this? I don't really see anything that Russia is doing as anything more than protecting their own national interests. They get pushback from their surrounding neighbors. They have a pretty good standard of living there comparatively to what they once had. So why would the governments want to invade Europe? They have good relations with Europe in general. Most of Russia's issues come with the surrounding countries, the Middle Eastern and other Muslim countries that border them. Most of their issues are with places like the Ukraine. And let's just go back to this. Where's it at here? Let's go back to this map. Like, you see, like, Kazakhstan here. You see the Ukraine, Belarus, Estonia, Latvia. You know, right up here. Ooh, wrong way. There's Finland, Sweden. These countries are closer. Do we have endless military bases there? Why didn't we have those military bases in Germany? Because at the time, we had this. And this was a big threat. Now, I'm not a fan of the idea of having the Cold War. But the real Cold War going on right now is not with Russia, people. It is with China. It is with the actual communists. The Russians once were. They are to some degree, but they really aren't pushing the narrative, the Stalinism, the Marxism of the global communist takeover. They have to deal with neighbors like China and North Korea. And of course, they're worried about growing their economy and becoming stronger themselves. And that will take time. China's had a head start. So, again, I just wanted to make this video today because I saw that come out in the news and I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. No wonder they're going to spin it this way. Because they hate that Trump doesn't want to be involved in all this globalism. And frankly, why should he be? Why should we be? Why should the United States be involved with all these problems with all these people over here? Why should we spend all of our money over there? You know, I'm not a fan of the idea of like universal healthcare and stuff. I think a privatized system actually works much better. We don't have a privatized system, people. We haven't had one since the 70s. So I don't want to hear arguments about a privatized system. It's like people saying that it's the free market. It's the free market that did this and that. Well, we don't really have a free market either. We have a largely free market, but we don't have a free market. It's the interventions that cause the issues. It's not necessarily the markets. And if there are interventions, then maybe the intervention should be on the level of not allowing corporations to build a monopoly. But the only true monopoly there is the government. And my question to you is do you want a world government to have a monopoly of power over your life? You know, a lot of these people are getting rich from China under the table. A lot of these people, they want this global government because they think that it will allow them to not only remain rich and in power, but to essentially set up their families for generations. And they don't think that you're smart enough to rule yourself, which is why they like the top-down control. So with all that, thank you very much for watching. This has been AllMinucOne. My name is Bill. Please like, share, and subscribe. And be well, all. I hope you all have a great weekend coming up. I'll probably do another video tomorrow. I was on vacation there, so I haven't made anything in about a week. And so I wanted to get something out. So take care, be well, and I'll see you around.